Marchese Daily, where we talk all about a psychosocial, political, or cultural analysis to better arm you with some examples and some F of X's to better facilitate your life and get your eyes on the prize and find your fulfillment. Today's topic, if you might have remembered my earliest streams, some of my earliest streams about a week or two ago, I mentioned that I constructed this analysis of Snapchat, specifically within the context of I was going through my drafts and I remember seeing this one of these stupid e-girls do this like bit for a week of if he says he has Snapchat or if he asks for your snap, that gives me the ick. And I'll say right here, rightfully so. But the irony of that is that I remember when I was anywhere from 20 to 20, all the way up to 24, I specifically avoided Snapchat for all of the reasons that they would say that Snapchat is cringe. I think it's cringe and it's gay. And yet, when I would meet women in any fashion, not even necessarily in the context of flirting, they would like give this gross anathema look at me when I was like, yeah, I don't have Snapchat or I don't care to use Snapchat. That, that's cringe, that's gay. And so I'm going to analyze why that was so in the beginning, and then why all of a sudden when they LARP that they've grown up past it and they do this goldfish meme of I feel this way now about Snapchat, therefore I'll just LARP that I never was cringe and degenerate about it. So I'm going to analyze why they anathematized me or anybody who doesn't have Snapchat, and then they subsequently turn over on the topic of Snapchat. And that actually should take me a little bit of a while here. I have some backup ideas here. I put more porn histrionics in case I have to talk about it because it's all over the fucking timeline still for days upon days. And you might have seen that I did a stream about that when that was circulating even more so a few weeks ago. But apparently all you freaks can't stop talking about fucking porn both ways. Porn and women. That's all anybody fucking talks about is porn and women. What happened to being based alpha males who don't give a fucking fuck with these stupid bitches? As if this is even really a complex philosophical existential question or topic. So that's going to be that here. I was trying to figure out what to wear because I've run out of new outfits, right? Over the past 2 weeks. So I was like, why don't I wear my merch here that I don't sell yet? I got to set that up because I'm not at a point where I could just like take the risk of bulk buying it, but I'll see if there's somebody who offers it, like just in time, I guess is the term. So wearing this, wore that yesterday with my meme making fun of. Make sure you like and retweet that meme from yesterday. Because there was that girl who did the stupid fucking dramatic music. I want a man who asks about my day and waits for the answer. I want a man who... And it's like everyone fucking knew how juvenile that was. But of course, the Hasbara department, the women's Hasbara department was like, what the freaking heck? That's that Allie girl. She's like, what the freaking heck? I don't understand why everybody thinks this is so cringe. Everybody, she just heckin' freaking wants to ask somebody to love her. She's just describing a relationship of love. Oh, really? If that's so simple and so easy, why do we even have to post it? What's so profound about this? Like, it's meant to solicit a emotional response. We're all supposed to go, oh, she's such a nice little girl, and oh, poor her, and oh, that's all she freaking wants. We're all supposed to have that reaction. Nobody appreciates when somebody does this cringe thing of soliciting emotionality, soliciting sympathy or empathy or something in like a way of wanting empathy or sympathy for its own sake rather than empathy or sympathy pursuant to some kind of action, some kind of political cause or actionality. So she was like, so I did the male version of that video especially because it was cringe. It was cringe in that it is women basically saying, oh, I want everything for nothing. That's one of the fundamental problems, and I promise I'll get into the main topic shortly. That's one of the fundamental problems of this relationship dynamic stuff. I might have said this yesterday, but I'll reiterate. We have that optimization of energy instinct. We have that wanting it all for nothing, wanting endless food. I think Wall-E was the movie that always strikes me, where the people have robots and they're on conveyor belts and they have the weather set perfectly and they don't even have to move. A machine just comes and like dopamine streams them. They're precious. They don't even have to chew. It chews for them. That's what people want. That's what these fucking insufferable, insentient amoebas want for both men and women. And Glenn, good to see you here in the space. In case you're unfamiliar, I do the stream and then I open up the space as a panel towards the end. So if you're just hanging out, that's cool. But if you wanted to speak fairly quickly, we'll just stand by for a moment. But appreciate you having you here. So that's the movie I see. So that is what people want in the context of relationships as well. They want to have it all for nothing. They want to have their cake and eat it too. And that is like one of the major points of contention in these relationships. So when this woman does this cringe, oh, I want a man who does this, that, the other thing, everyone rightfully detects you're only like thinking about this in the context of what you want. Like, what do you have to offer in return? And it's not even necessarily transactionalism is the point, but it is a part of it such that there's like an emotional transaction that everyone overlooks. There's an abstract, sort of amorphous, complex transaction that everyone overlooks, that everyone's really particularly preoccupied with, and they don't quite articulate yet. So in this video, this girl is asking for this sort of giving of his entire existence for her. And what's more, as always, it's like this goldfish meme of they feel that right here, right now, in that moment, and then when the thing actually happens, that provokes a different feeling that they then preoccupy themselves with. It's like the classics of shit testing. It's, oh, can you carry this for me? And you say no, then they get mad in that moment because they want you to carry it. But then when you do carry it, they're like, ew, you're a bitch. You let me do that. So my video was the male version of that. So in case you didn't see, I had this hoodie on. I was like, I had the fake vape. Everyone thought the fake vape was funny, and I basically did a, I want a bitch who shuts the fuck up, and I don't have to reiterate the whole video for you to get the gist there. So yeah, that was that part. This Ali character, Ali Voss, the chief of Hasbara for women, is I'm calling her. That's got to catch on. That's going to be my way up, is owning the shit out of women, I guess. Despite me every day on this stream saying, oh, let's try not to talk about women challenge, impossible. So anyway, what's more on the timeline, and I promise I'll get into this Snapchat analysis topic, more of this porn histrionics stuff. I will say, in case you missed my tweet about it, there is an accountability element to that despite being the based fascist alpha male right wing that says, ooh, we're fucking health epic. One of my main shticks is they're fucking not. They're half-assers 3 times a week. And there really is, every big gym bro will tell you that the sexless marriage thing is not a problem when you are sexy. They do rightfully make the point of men, if they want to, we forget the part where we have to be sexy too. And we also, isn't it interesting how there's all these alpha-based males who know that fucking bitches are fucking lying about what they're attracted to and fucking lying, then they don't give a fucking fuck. They just want to fuck a hot guy. They just want to fuck a muscle Chad. It's like, okay, so if that's all they care to say, think, feel, want, are we forgetting the part that extends to marriage too? And are we forgetting the part where if we just get big and jacked and sexed up, that necessarily is the conclusion? Problem sort of solved. Now, simultaneously, there is also a counterpoint to that of marriage, the duty, the responsibility, the commitment, rightfully so. But I did want to bring that up here on stream in case anybody missed the actual tweet element to it. So I think I'll write a full-on article elucidating every single angle to this porn stuff, because I actually don't think it's that consequential in terms of the determinism. Everyone does this low IQ thing that they learned 10 years ago about brain determinism and neurotransmitters, not in the cool way that I know about neurotransmitters, but specifically neuroplasticity. And we do this deterministic meme of, oh, well, it alters your brain in this way, that way. And just like a basic heuristic here, I know this is like quote unquote anecdotal, but last I checked, I've even said I obviously consumed porn and for many years, right? My first exposure to it was when I was 13, 14. The worst I got was like consuming porn twice a day and, trying to find bigger tits and bigger ass. And subsequently, over the years, as I gained evaluation of like what that or the opposite of that, I gained evaluation of everything. And I won't go into too much detail. But over the years, and as a matter of fact, towards the later years of my porn consumption, I didn't even look at porn specifically. I looked at thirst traps, which I still will say is porn. Obviously so, if that was my modicum of consumption. But all that's to say, this deterministic stuff of, oh, you're necessarily going to go and sink into this deep hole of novelty. You're going to be in your goon cave. There's gooners, there's goon caves, there's that problem of people, but that's more so in any way, you probably have a precipitating pathological attachment to it that's much more rooted in some kind of dysfunction of emotionality that you got to go to the base therapist for. So all that's to say, the determinism is low IQ. Now, that doesn't imply I'm condoning it per se, but let's have a little bit of a higher IQ and let's talk about the psychodynamic effects that we actually resent about porn. And this is where men and women aren't getting along or are conflicting. And that is because every man in the male collective unconscious, in the group chats, in the international We Hate Women's group chat, we all know the problem of porn has nothing to do with the determinism specifically, but rather the enslavement to it, the way that it feels like it has power over you and owns you in some way. That is by definition emasculation. What we truly resent about porn is that it strips our sexuality from us. It is sexual power over us. The one power that has sort of a weakness on us, that has something on us. We're impervious to women physically. We're impervious to women in a lot of cases interpersonally, psychosocially, but we're not impervious to the leverage that is their sexuality that they have over us. So when we consume porn, that emulates women having sexual leverage over us, and that's by definition emasculation. That is stripping you of power, that's stripping you of agency, that's stripping you of discipline and free will. So every man in every group chat in the international We Hate Women Discord, crazy fucking concept, ladies, but we're actually all against this for the most part. Even the PUA type bros, these red pill bros, these sort of all these different factions, among some of these factions of PUA type bros, red pill bros that sort of make this a pro maleness thing. In terms of they rightfully see that women's anathema for porn is more so leverage of sexual control that for them, but even amongst them, they're not particularly condoning porn or not particularly saying porn is good for XYZ reason. They are just elucidating some broader, more nuanced problems to it. So even amongst that group chat, even amongst that chat channel in the We Hate Women Discord, those guys aren't particularly condoning porn. So what we all resented about porn all this time is sexual leverage, is that indiscipline. The grounding force of masculinity is self-control, is control over the self, because that is congruence. That's what it means to have actual, tangible, real power. And then, of course, that extends to political power, influence power, and so on. I'll give you a little bit of a storied example. And this is also an element of transaction analysis, and this is where we're transitioning a little bit more of psychoanalytic stuff. I had like a nasty breakup. We all do, right? The nasty breakup, the one that freaking changed you and all that when I was about 20, 21. And in the tail ends of that relationship, in the midst of the war battlefield of ego, a battlefield of what I felt like was being taken from me and vice versa, there was an attempt at using sexual leverage. And more than just, oh, we need that in a way per se, that is how men feel. They're always talking about how they need to feel safe in a relationship. That is how men feel safe. That is how men feel that their balls aren't taken from them, as we talk about here in castration anxiety. If she is using that against you, it is quite literally like having her hand on them and manipulating them in her own way. So anyway, the tail ends of that, in the wake of that as an attempt at leverage, I decided that was when I decided to really make the effort to wage war on the porn habit, because I told myself, if I'm to ever have a much more, I was already in this sort of masculine headspace, but I was like, if I can develop that further, if I can linearize that further, I can protect myself against sexual leverage. So my decision was, if I train myself to shirk off porn, if I train myself to make it not a part of my sexuality in any way, it further strengthens my ability to withstand any attempt at sexual leverage. So that was that, and that was many years ago. And even in the name of full disclosure here, that lasted for like maybe 5-6 months. I did like the weaning off tactic. And then I just sort of asked myself, what am I really getting out of this? And then I concluded it wasn't really giving me the sense of masculinity that I needed per se, because that was a separate sort of distinction. That was a separate problem, or that was a separate, the main feeling of emasculation that I had was in the confines of a whole separate pathology that I needed to work out. So subsequently, I had those few months of like abstinence from that, and then I went back to it, and then over the many years, culminating in really just thirst traps being the main consumption. And then I just sort of stopped, because it just wasn't a thing. It just wasn't really enticing in any meaningful way, and I just got preoccupied with doing more important things, like well, not streaming, because this was a few years ago, but getting my way out of the military, further strengthening my career and everything associated. And then, of course, meeting my wife and then getting married to her. So, anyway, long intro, I guess, per se, going off on what's been going on the timeline. So, real quick here, Marchese maxing. Like, subscribe, retweet. If you have two screens, have the space up, have the live stream on X up, have the YouTube up, and have the Rumble up. We got to get up here. We got to get famous here, and checking in on our stream here. What's up, guys? I was having like 40 to 50 people per stream, and they all said, start at 8 a.m. So then I do, and then now not as many people. So what, are you guys all sleeping, huh? You big babies? So anyway, that's just a joke. 07 to everyone in the space here. I'll try to, maybe I'll bring you guys in a little earlier than I usually do, just because if we have people here, I'm sure you guys have a lot of good thoughts and feelings and the like. So let me do this Snapchat analysis. So in case you missed it from the beginning, I see women all the time saying how Snapchat gives them the ick. And it's such a moment of women being goldfish thing, because I remember when I was 20 to 24, I wasn't really participating in Snapchat because I already felt how juvenile it was and how silly it was, and like dopey head, like peanut dopey head. But then when women would ask if I had Snapchat in any way, I would get the ick, right, in a twist of fate. But I would really just say, no, I don't have that. I don't care for that. I don't want to interact that way. And they would they would do this like anathema look, and they would be disgusted by it. So let's analyze. I thought a lot about that context at the time. So for starters, the disgust is a projection. This disgust in that context is a projection, and it's a projection of their guilt for indulgence. Indulgence takes many forms. Indulgence is sort of pleasing yourself or getting off in many forms. Many of us know that social media is a form of indulgence. The scrolling, the dopey hits, the novelty stimulus. Let me take a sip of my drink here. So, everyone sort of vaguely understood that starting maybe like 2017, 2018 is when everyone started to understand the consequences of the indulgence of the social media and everything. And so subsequently, a way to signal that you were a cool, disciplined, tough guy in some meaningful way, you were above that, you were some celestial being, you were some morally superior being, would be to reject that stuff. Would be to say, yeah, fucking, I'm not on social media like that. Fucking, that stuff's fucking rotting your brain, right? Now, I thought that, I felt that way. Now I don't really feel that way, ironically, because I'm on social media all day. I don't think it actually, again, sort of like this deterministic model thing. I don't think it's actually that consequential. I don't think it's that negative or problematic with the consumption, with the dopamine and all that stuff. I mean, it's a problem, but if you're also creating, if you're also contacting, like it's contacting, it's replying, it's talking to people, so, and we do that all day, every day. So now, nevertheless, that's not a justification for it per se. But anyway, so now I wasn't posturing per se in this context, but these types would feel it as that because the presence of a disciplined approach to Snapchat, or a rejection, a repudiation of Snapchat or social media, would activate that, would trigger that sensation of, oh, right, I'm being indulgent, I'm guilty about that. And so the way to ameliorate, well, of course, instead of reflecting upon that, instead of saying, yeah, maybe I should chill on that too, yeah, maybe I could live without it. Of course, that would require accountability, responsibility. That would require a feeling of the discomfort of trying that, the output of energy, and rejecting the current schema of the world, the discomfort of now stepping into the unknown. So one of the ways they try to ameliorate is just to project outwards, to say, well, you're actually gross and disgusting and inferior, not me. And of course, it would all just be pursuant to maintaining that indulgence because it feels good. And so that would be the first part of this Snapchat disgust upon discovering that you don't have it, despite women now saying that they're disgusted if you do have it or if you do use it. So now, how would they sort of justify this disgust? How would they project that disgust outwards? Well, the second element to this is our typical male-female interdynamics thing of male status. Especially between like 20 to 24, the major sort of domains, the major sort of hierarchies of status include sort of social status, like literally just raw status by way of having friends, people liking you, being funny, being the guy, being the cool guy, being the respected one, being interpersonally and psychosocially dominant and respected, regardless of some sort of a thing like career or money or accomplishments. You're just cool. And so they would project this, they would justify this disgust outwards by sort of feeling within their little peanut brains that, oh, this male, he's not like high status. If you don't have Snapchat, you're necessarily not communicating with people as prolifically, if that's a word, proliferated. You're necessarily not as communicative, which necessarily means you don't have as deep or as broad an access to people and access to friends, allies, and therefore you don't have status, and therefore you don't have as much access to resources and everything, and therefore women don't desire you, and therefore QED, you're lay unattractive, you're lay heckin' unattractive beta male. So yeah, there's also an element to, just reading my notes here. There's also an element to, well, let me see if I have other notes to it. Stand by. Promise I'll get better. there's also an element of that is like their teleology. Their teleology is live in pleasantries and pleasure and dopamine. So they also find disgust according to their fake morality that they made up. That is pleasure, pleasantries, la-di-da, feelsy goodsy is the teleology, and therefore you're like morally aberrant to them if you're rejecting that. And you being like, oh, I don't have Snapchat sort of posits that you can live life without 24/7 fucking dopamine. And according to their little insentient amoeba peanut brains, that's like anathema. So thirdly, they also do this disgust thing as a general mammal cohesion thing. Specifically, if you are rejecting Snapchat amongst these young retarded girls, you are sort of bucking the system. You're bucking the collective consensus. You are bucking the collective unconscious. You are rejecting this teleology that everyone has. Everyone is a pleasantries, pleasure coombrainer. So when you reject this by just your behavior, by just your existence, it solicits or provokes this responsive feeling, this responsive disgust and anger amongst everybody because you're challenging their schemas, you're challenging their little gay little teleology, you're making them conscious of their guilt, particularly in the schema part. There's this schema of this is how we're supposed to interact, but if you repudiate that, it proposes that they don't have their schema fully built or well built or built upon reality. And in the wake of that, now they're sort of stumbling across the world in an unknown, which produces a sense of feeling stupid that you didn't get it, but then also danger in now I don't know how to interact. Now I don't know what interaction is. Now I don't know if I've had it right. And so there's the danger of not knowing, not preparing yourself for danger, and then of course the dangers in and of themselves. This is how anybody feels anytime their schema is challenged. It feels like you're in a forest in the dark, wherein the dangers of, let's say, the animals are dangerous in and of themselves, but the dark necessarily inhibits your ability to respond to that danger accordingly. You can get snuck up on, essentially. And so they resent that you are challenging the consensus and it is dangerous. And so then to associate with you is dangerous because the collective will come together to repudiate you by ostracizing you, by shaming you, by alienating you. And now you're on the bottom of the totem pole. And so any interaction with you will sort of transmute that lower status to them. And then therefore, not as much access to resources, not as much access to influence in the community. And, and of course, since they're all peanut little insentient amoeba brains, they could never be bothered to actually entertain or rationalize about the challenge of what Snapchat means and what Snapchat and interacting in this way is, and whether that's an appropriate way or a good way to interact. So, now, fourthly, there's also an element of they want to interact in this way, not just because of dopamine and novelty, but because of lukewarm intimacy. So people have this remarkable thing that they do, wherein when we try to have our cake and eat it too, one of our strategies is to sometimes do something half-ass or something lukewarm. And in particular, when we're not proud of ourselves, when we're scared, when we have low self-esteem, especially when you're a Snapchat coomer and you cannot for the life of you reconcile the difference between joy, happiness, fulfillment, confidence, and pleasure and pleasantries, and you want to justify the pleasure and pleasantries anyway if you know the difference because your little peanut brain tells you you're going to die otherwise. That's the main signal of pleasure and displeasure. Pleasure pursuant to survival, displeasure pursuant to in survival, non-survival. And so people really can't be bothered with this because they think they're going to die. And so this includes, in the case of now, because they're not living up to themselves, they're not living up to their self-esteem, their superego, their ideal self, they're not disciplining themselves, they're not pursuing righteousness, pursuing joy, you necessarily have low self-esteem. You don't consider yourself highly. You consider yourself less than or inferior or beneath because you aren't living up to what's good, what you have inscribed upon your heart as good. So, in the wake of that, we're scared to be intimate in people. We're scared for our identity to truly reveal itself to people. So what we do is we sort of have lukewarm relationships. We have these lukewarm intimacies. And Snapchat's a perfect medium for that because the nature of it is short-lived. It's not really having any meaningful depth. The interaction spikes your dopamine, so it emulates relating. It emulates relating in a meaningful way. Through the jokes and even the flirtation and even the sexuality of it. But you actually don't have to really expose or reveal or present your deepest, darkest identity. So people love, or these retard young women love to interact on Snapchat because they think that they're optimizing by not risking revealing their identity, but simultaneously getting a sense of intimacy. And of course, it doesn't work. It just emulates intimacy because it's a reward signaling, but it's more so a reward signaling that's hijacked by novelty stimulus that is inscribed upon us so that we're stimulated when we hunt and gather. But also stimulus through sort of just general dopey, silly, easy ways to interact. Funny, silly, goofy, feelsy, goodsy ways to interact. Short-lived, quippy. It feels good, but it isn't good. It emulates intimacy, but is the farthest thing from intimacy. And then, of course, this is one of the major sources of neurotic hysteria amongst people because even outside the context of this Snapchat thing, women or anybody otherwise will try to get lukewarm intimacy. And a lot of men do this, actually. Men do this when they just try to fuck bitches promiscuously. Part of that is intimacy avoidance. Part of that is trying to emulate intimacy without having to have that risk. So now, further pursuant to this is the fifth part here, further pursuant to this sort of attraction metric thing, it's social status combined with this signaling of being a rambunctious, boisterous, obnoxious male, alpha male. So this is what I call the Goonette dilemma. Women, they only understand alpha male signaling through these boisterous, goofy guys who wear their cool guy hat perfectly fucking parallel to the marching surface backwards, and they're always like, ah, yo, we lit, and the stupid fucking body language, the performative, body language. So they only understand alpha. They only understand alpha signaling, masculinity signaling through that because it spikes their fucking neurons. There's multiple expressions of alpha maleness, expressions of discipline. And so, just a perfect example of that is the gym, the bros who sort of keep to themselves but grind, right? That has to be alpha. That's necessarily alpha because that's pursuing truth. That's pursuing truth, righteousness, career, accomplishment, having a mark, having influence. But that doesn't activate their fucking Goonette neurons, and women endlessly rely on their fucking Goonette neurons and neurotransmitters spiking up and down to tell them whether something is good or bad. And they rely heavily on that because it's inscribed upon them in their neurology to heuristically do so because they can't afford to rationalize. They don't have time in the hunter-gatherer times. They don't have time, they don't have the energy, they don't have the strength to withstand something in a way that's pursuant to some sort of later and greater good goal survivalism, because if they're under threat, they got to bounce. They don't have anything other than to run. And so the brain structure is to use feelings to rapidly make that decision or rapidly infer when there's a danger or when something is good or bad as well. So they're endlessly relying on whether their neurons are spiked, and they get the spike from these types of guys rather than the sort of quietist, cool and collected alpha male, unless it's cool guy with the cool guy face on in a suit with the stupid fucking cigar and whiskey. So not having Snapchat sort of implies that you're not that. You're not the boisterous, rambunctious alpha male going, hey. that signals confidence, that does signal a, and isn't it ironic too, because they resent authentic signals or authentic challenging of the consensus, challenging of the mammalian group consensus, but they don't resent it. They also want you to challenge it as a way to express leadership, confidence, discipline, as a way to express that you are not beholden to the group. You can take charge. And then, of course, that's every signal from ability to hunt, to gather, to ability to wield influence and to garner resources. And so, but they don't want you to authentically challenge, because then that upsets the apple cart and then that makes people upset and everything. So they want you to challenge, but within the confines of when it's okay. So it's not actually a challenge. So this includes the boisterous, hey, we lit, doing these stupid sort of ridiculous dances and performances that are sort of like authorized challenges, like faux edgy, authorized edginess. And so they get their little fucking neuron spike from that, so that if you don't have that, they necessarily conclude, ew, you're like a beta. Ew, you're like unattractive. And then they also resent those guys because they know that that boisterousness, it's confident per se in a way, but it's fickle. It's people who are, it's men who are led by their feelings. They're just confident in their feelings. They're confident in their fickle, googly eyes, dopamine heads. They challenge the consensus by challenging the guilt complex, the superego, the mandate to be better than that. So they get off to that. Women get off to that, and they get off to sort of, it's sort of like that meme that I've posted maybe once or twice, where it's like, LOL, OMG, she's so funny, my friend. And she's like in the supermarket with the peace signs and the kiss face, and it's like some thing on top of her head. Like, yeah, wow, real edgy, real funny. Yeah, we're really getting a dopamine release out of that. And that sort of suggests or tells you how beholden to the group behaviors and consensuses that women really are. That they're actually nervous and scared and think it's edgy to do some sort of stupid, silly pose with a silly thing on your head. It's like they are so weak in that way. And I hate to be like, LOL, this is kind of turning into talking about women, not to shit on women all the time. So that's the Goonet dilemma to this. So I have a lot of writing on this. And then I said earlier, the comfort and schema. This is also sort of, in terms of the intimacy part, this is also sort of adjacent to wanting to interact the easy way. Because it's an easy way to interact insofar as they're not risking intimacy. They're not jeopardizing their self-esteem. Because that's the other thing, too, I forgot to mention. The risk of revealing your low self-esteem self is the presumption that the other person hates you, or is going to hate you, or is going to think lowly of you. And then that's necessarily just going to be a wound, a further damage in yourself. So adjacent to that is wanting to interact the easy way, because it's just easy. It's easy to sort of half-ass send these stupid pictures, communicating these stupid things, being stupid. The surface level is also just pursuant to what's easy instead of actually thinking and having depth in your interaction. And so that's a further optimization of sort of half-assing. It's like in the gym, half-assing the workout, walking for 30 minutes on the treadmill and telling yourself you freaking heckin' worked out. So, and then there's also the broader schema point. I said earlier, this is my later point, but I'll just mention it here in case there's any points that I missed. So the broader schematic element to it is this is how you're supposed to act. This is the main medium of interaction. So if you reject or repudiate that, you are challenging the consensus. And when you challenge the consensus, people feel uncomfortable because they want an egotistic way of having figured it out, particularly women, because social interaction, they purport to have their magic psychology powers, and that's sort of like essential to their faux self-esteem, their faux ameliorate for identity, pursuant to making up for not living up to their actual self. And so when you challenge that, you're challenging their entire little schema that's necessarily deconstructing it such that they have to investigate themselves. And one of the problems of that is, well, if you built your identity upon this external, tangible skill thing, faux skill thing that you didn't actually seriously develop, you're going to have to be conscious of your low self-esteem for yourself, your low opinion of yourself. And so there's that scary element to it. So they sort of try to project that outwards by having disgust at you for not having Snapchat. And following, they also resent that just overall the comfort of that schema, the comfort of interacting that way. If that's not how you're supposed to interact, or there's a much richer and deeper, fulfilling, better way to interact, they will, just checking my frame rates and stuff here, it's going up and down and up and down. I adjusted my thing in case you missed it yesterday. I was playing with, I had to figure it out, but it looks like I have to adjust it. So anyway, the schematic element is the discomfort of now stepping into the unknown, which carries the danger of the actual dangers of the unknown, slipping up and being weird per se or something, and also unpreparedness for what's considered weird and not weird. So anyway, I think that is my whole psychoanalysis. Oh, well, I'll say, and then what happens? Why do they reject it when they get older? Well, they reject it because now they pick up on the fundamental problem of the boisterous retard alpha male. They reject, or they understand that that guy is fickle, that he's led by the nose to his feelings and impulses, that he is subordinate, actually. Once they interact with him, they quickly realize how subordinate he is to sexuality. They know it's an act. They know it's incongruent. It takes them fucking years to figure out how incongruent that is, how it's not real, how it's not authentic. It's not a real signal. It is a performance. And so they reject that. So that's where they get their quote-unquote ick from Snapchat. And then ironically, they also get an ick from Snapchat because they pick up, this is one of the times that they actually do have social keenness, is that they do pick up on that everything that they thought and felt when they were younger, resenting men who didn't have Snapchat, they also pick up on how Snapchat users all think and feel all of these things: the mammal cohesion, the low self-esteem, the comfort of interaction, the interacting without depth, the coon-brainedness. They pick up on how that is the precipitating mentalities of people who are obsessed and compulsed with Snapchat. And so it's like the meme about women in this context is the goldfish thing of what they feel right here, right now is the ultimate, the fundamental truth of the entire existence of the universe. And with no reconciliation, with no construct for how they'll feel in the future or how they used to feel. It's just stimulus, it's just action, and then it's reaction, then that reaction is the truth. The reaction is the ultimate truth and informs everything from opinions to thoughts to actions even. And so that is my Snapchat analysis here. I got my buddy here. Thanks for being so patient. I'm going to invite you to speak on the panel. Some thoughts, some... Oops, I clicked on your profile. I didn't send the... speaker invite. If you're on the live stream and you have some thoughts, some opinions, some feelings to say, by all means, jump right on into the space. Let's see, what can I say while we wait here? Oh, there you go. You're a speaker. Welcome, Marcus. What are your thoughts? Bruh. All right, stand by. I'm not hearing you. I think I have to remove the Mac OS audio from my OBS here. All right, try again. Bruh. I'm so sorry. This happens a handful of times. Let me think. How can I fix this real quick? Let's go to sound. It's something wrong with the computer here. All right, so let me do. Okay, let me. Why doesn't it send? Maybe I'll try space settings. No, that doesn't really do it. Microphone. Alrighty. Maybe try jumping out and then jumping back in. We'll give that a go. And if that doesn't work, maybe I'll have to restart or something. Yeah, still not hearing you. It's just gonna have to remove. So last time I suspected that the problem with this was that I set the Mac OS speakers to go to the OBS to stream through just so that it's a little cleaner for anybody who's watching the stream and listening to the panel at the end. I wanted it to be clean audio to go through the stream sort of digitally instead of having to hear from my speakers from the computer. But it looks like that is still never works. So, and I think I accidentally had it still as going through there automatically as digital audio. So maybe if he leaves and comes back in. If not, I think I might have to end the stream, I suppose, and then just do the panel thereafter, or end the panel first and then do the stream. Actually, let me try Chat GPT here. Stand by, everybody. Well, I type on my cool guy middle split keyboard here, so you'll hear me clacking away. And I invited you as a speaker, Marcus, so that we could try in the meantime. Yeah, I'm still not hearing you. All right, what should I do? It might take me a minute to actually fix this, so maybe I'll have to end the stream for it to actually work. If you want, you could comment here or something like that with your thoughts while I try to fix this. I think it just goes wrong because it hijacks it, so I have to like basically end the stream. But let me go to your. Yeah, we'll do an after space. All right, so maybe I'll keep this recording here for anybody, and then I'll just sort of do. I'll start a new space, and then maybe that can fix it. Yeah. So thanks for your patience, Marcus. Yeah, I'm gonna set up a after space. Let me copy and paste this, and then I'll just... Alrighty. I'll see you in the after space, Marcus. Be on the lookout. And then for everybody in the stream, appreciate you guys staying in the stream here. I know it's tough not to bust your chops or anything, but I know it's sort of tough. In the modern day... I'll label it panel, record space, start now. So anyway, yeah. Appreciate it. I know in the modern day, some of you guys might be getting ready for work or something. Some of you guys might be hanging out. So overall, appreciate that when you could, as soon as I'm not stimulating you. When you could, just go top elsewhere. So appreciate you guys standing by. Loyal Marchese Maxers. Look at that. We got some loyal-ass Marchese Maxers here. Much appreciated. I have the after space. I labeled it as panel here. So hopefully that works. And then if that doesn't, I'll probably just have to end the stream for it, because I think somehow it sort of gets stuck in hijacking the audio here. And then I'll grow up. I'll grow up and not be such a retard next time, and I'll make sure to just never bring in the Mac OS audio into the OBS stream here. So let's see. Is this lighting okay? I'm looking at this here. Sometimes the lighting looks good in the after stream, but you know, maybe my face is a little oily right now, it looks like. Sitting back in my hoodie like a dirty bubble. Dirty bubble and the gray hoodie, the gray fucking sweatpants. Anybody else resent that? I fucking resent that so much. Like, it is so juvenile. Can any of you fucking people grow the fuck up with that? It's dirty. It's gross. It's not cool. You don't come off as aloof. You don't come off as hot, I guess. It's sort of weird. When women do it, it seems like they think it's like hot or something. Which I guess it kind of could be, but it's cringe. All right, so I see a speaker request, but he doesn't show up. All right. So Marcus, I have you approved here. I don't see you in the space, so I think at that point it's just a 5,000 IQ immigrant, H-1B immigrant in X problem. I saw that Marcus requested to speak, but now he's not even showing up as in the space here. Yikes. Yikes, department. Alrighty, so might have to call this one an end here. And then it just crashed. Yeah, because crashing. Anyway, okay. All right, I'll get that fixed. So that's the end of that. That's Marchese Daily for you, live on the air Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. If you would like coaching or based therapy, one-on-one sessions, head on over to marchesemethods.com. You can do 1 hour, or you could do 4 hours up front for a discount per hour. You can also email me or send me a DM to request access to my Discord for $5 a month. You could text me all day, every day, asking for help, advice, tips, tricks, thoughts, and anything that you might think I have to offer you. That's our stream. I will see you tomorrow.